Hello students, कैसी चल रही है आप लोग की preparation? And even if it is your prelims tomorrow, even if it is your mains tomorrow, even if you're going to appear for your interview the very same day, you have to look at the newspaper without a fail. Who knows, if it is your day, there might be few of the questions asked in the test or that particular exam, that particular day. Who knows, you might get few questions from the things, from the articles you read that particular day, and it happened with few of my friends, with me also, when we were appearing for exams. So do not forget to read newspaper, be it any day. I know you might be having this misconception that prelims is coming, I do not have much time to read newspaper, let me read some compilation rather than reading newspaper, let me focus on conventional part, the static part, let me focus on the marks. But let me remind you that you cannot escape reading newspaper. Make it a habit of reading newspaper without a fail. Just like you breathe every second, every minute, you have to read newspaper every day. So with this thought, let's begin our the main agenda of the day, that is daily newspaper analysis. Let's look at the first thing, and that is what articles we will be covering today. So start marking. The first article which you need to cover from today's newspaper is Stepping Together. This article is about a Kathak dance. We will be looking at some, there are 8 classical dance, and that you have to know, you have to remember by name and its characteristics, which state it belongs to. In this news, there is a coverage of one of the 8 classical dances, that is Kathak. We will look at some questions and try to understand what are the features of Kathak dance. And the second article that we will look up at is rules that edge out women from jobs. So Supreme Court has said that some of the rules which might create gender discrimination at work, such as if employer are laying off women who are, because of they got married or they're going for childbirth, this is against organizational ethics. Supreme Court has ruled that such kind of laws and rules, if our practice, are against women, and they have to be eliminated from every organization. And then you can quote this, you can use this article in writing any essay or in ethics paper or in paper 1, social issues and social justice. You can mention this Supreme Court judgment and you can use it in answers relating to that particular section. And then third article that we will look at is Skywalker Hulak Gibbon. It is a news about Hulak Gibbon, which is found in India, Bangladesh, and the largest is in Myanmar. This news is about that. Let's look at, we will be dealing with some questions also. Then fourth article that you need to note down in focus is the real threat to the India as we know it. So the writer in this article has mentioned that there are some practice which is going against the ethos of democracy, and there are some internal and external situations which are some way having some negative impact on India's democracy. Though India is able to deal with such external internal chaos or conflicts, and the impact is not there much, but there are some concerns which has been listed down in this article, and then there has been a solution at the end of the article has been mentioned. We will deconstruct and understand each concerns and the solution provided by the writer, and this is a beautiful article that we have to understand and read. Then keep it wholesome. And then the last article will be about judicial clarity on free speech. These are the articles that we will look at. Let's then read each article in detail one by one. Look at this picture. So if you read about this here, dancers perform Kathak on Tuesday during the inauguration of 50th edition of Khajuraho Dance Festival at the Khajuraho Temple complex in Madhya Pradesh. So where is Khajuraho Temple? It is in Madhya Pradesh. So Kathak dance has been dancers has performed there. Let's look at some of the questions related to Kathak and its features. Look at this picture. So this is the attire of a Kathak dancer, and look at the question. This is the only form of classical dance wedded to Hindustani or North Indian music. The dancer often pauses to recite verses followed by their execution through movement. Which dance form is being discussed in the above statement? So obviously it is Kathak. Let's look at some of the features of the Kathak, which is important for examination point of view. History and evolution. The foundation of Kathak are rooted in Natya Shastra, an ancient Sanskrit text written by Bharat Muni collection. So this is what this is rooted in Natya Shastra. The second point which you need to have in focus about Kathak dance is three chief sections of Kathak dance are invocation, nritta and nritya. So what is invocation? Where the artist offers his or her prayers or salutations to his her guru and to the god. So the first first chief section about Kathak is invocation, where the dancer, the artist offers prayers to whom? To the guru and to the god. In the case of Hindu performances, the artist uses mudras, hand gestures for the same. For Muslim occasions, the artist gives salami. So it is performed by both Hindus and Muslims. This is not only unique to Hindu tradition. The third section about Kathak is Nritta, pure dance. It is a second section is pure dance, and Nritya. Nritta is the second, Nritya is the third. The artist showcases story or theme through gestures, expressions and slow body movement accompanied by vocal and instrumental music. So there will be instrumental music, there will be vocal music, and the artist showcases a story. As Kathak is prevalent both in Hindu and Muslim people group, the outfits of this moving frame are made in accordance with the customs of the separate group. So this is not in particular, the attire is not very specific. This can be altered as per the person performing, be it from the Muslim group or the Hindu group. So this is about Kathak, and then let's move to the second article, gender equality. Just you have to read about this article, and you can use some of the points mentioned in this article in your answer, like it is for gender equality. Look at this point. Rules that bully women employees out of their jobs for getting married or having domestic issues amount to coerced gender discrimination and are plainly unconstitutional, the Supreme Court has said. Terminating employment. And so what are these rules which are bully against women? Terminating employment because of women getting married, case of gender discrimination and inequality. Acceptance of such patriarchal rules undermines human dignity, right to non-discrimination and fair treatment. Laws and regulations based on gender-based biases are unconstitutional, or gender-based are constitutionally impermissible. So this is about what Supreme Court said. Read this line also. Rules making marriage of women employment, rules making marriage of women employees and their domestic involvement a ground for entitlement would be unconstitutional. So this is what you need to take away from this article, and you can mention it any answer you are trying to attempt about gender equality or social issues in paper 1, essay, ethics as well. So this is what I wanted to show. The third point, the third article that we have to take in detail is this one. Look at this. Hulak Gibbon, Skywalker. Look at the picture. This picture is of Skywalker Hulak Gibbon in Myanmar, when the Skywalker Hulak Gibbon was first discovered in 2017, where it was discovered in, and then it was in the known population of Skywalker Gibbon in a single location. So group of Star Wars loving scientists is only confirmed population fewer than 200 were in neighborhood China, but it is now found that the Myanmar has the largest known population of Skywalker Gibbons in single location. So this is something about Skywalker Hulak Gibbon. Let's look at a question. With reference to Hulak Gibbon, consider the following statements. It is the only ape species found in India. It is the first statement is it is the only ape species found in India. Second, it is correct statement. It has 2 subspecies. This is right. But then now look at here, both are listed as endangered in IUCN red list. No, one is eastern and another is Western. So that one is considered as vulnerable in IUCN Red List, vulnerable, and second is endangered. So this statement is wrong. This statement is wrong. This species is an example of arboreal adaptation. What do you mean by arboreal adaptation? Where the species movement and search for food is from trees to trees. So these are arboreal. This statement is correct. So what will be our answer? 1 and 3. It has asked about correct statement. So 1 and 3 will be the correct answer. That is answer option number C, right? Let's look at the third article that we have to deal in very much detail, and this is a beautiful article relating to paper 2. Look at this article. The real threat to India as we know it. The writer is M.K. Narayanan. When any article is written by M.K. Narayanan, Mr. M.K. Narayanan, please read it carefully. The language, the flow of the thought, and the kind of issues taken up by him while writing the articles can be immensely helpful for you to write any answer on that particular topic. That is why I have highlighted each point which you need to take and how you need to remember. Look, the writer is making a point that democracy should run based on constitutionally mandated principles. Otherwise, there can be a chaos, there can be threat to democracy. Democracy should run by constitutionally mandated principles. If it is not being adhered to, there could be erosion of the ethos of democracy or parliamentary democracy. That is in some situations has been in criticism in case of India. So let's look at all the concerns and what the author or the writer is trying to make a point in this article. Read the first line. With the 17th Lok Sabha having ended, the stage is now set for general elections. So 17th Lok Sabha has ended and now we are due for general elections. Go to second paragraph, last line. Looking at the current decline in parliamentary practices, there is a decline in parliamentary practices. People, however, worry whether parliament can be dependent upon to sustain a stable democracy in the future. So there are decline in some parliamentary practices. Now there are concerns that whether democracy can be thrived, the country which is democratic in nature, can the democracy still be thriving in a country where by depending on the parliament, because parliament, there are some practices which are declining in parliament form of government, which is India. So the writer further is saying that there are external internal situation which is influencing parliamentary democracy in the country. So what are those external internal situations? But the writer is making a point that these external internal situations are not having much impact if we talk even the situation till now. But then again, the writer is trying to make us conscious, or is trying to warn that there are some concerns hovering or prevailing in the country which needs to have a relook, and then those concerns has been listed one by one, and then what could be a solution or a way forward has been mentioned at the end. So let's look at the external or internal situation. In the external situation, the writer is saying that see, the global political environment may be murky, but India has hardly been impacted adversely. So the global situation is murky, but India is not touched by that, notwithstanding the ongoing war in Ukraine. So case in example, war in the Ukraine, and the second is the turmoils in the West Asia and other similar tensions. Then third, China remains a matter of concern, demanding extreme vigilance, and also it has given example of Pakistan. Then about the internal dynamics which is prevailing, and those are no doubt are more problematic, but India has been fortunate of late to be spared of facing major terror attacks. For example, the internal dynamics such as the farmers' agitation in the Punjab and Haryana, northeast region remains unsettled, with Manipur representing a microcosm of the problem that have plagued this region. So these are some internal dynamics which is prevailing in India, and the writer is saying still these are manageable and they are not of much concerns. And then further it is mentioning about communal violence under check, even though communal tensions could be exacerbated in election year, left-wing extremism. So these are the internal dynamics. Though it has been checked, it is not having much impact. So the further the concerns, now we will look at the concerns which needs to be looked at and has to be dealt strongly to secure and the ethos of a democracy, the fabric of the democracy which the country the democracy as a principle which the country respects and thrives on. So what are the concerns? The north-south divide. North-south divide based on language, culture, regionalism, etc. These point has been made. The north-south divide further, if you see, caste, language, religion, and the second point which here the writer has made is widening the gulf between the ruling party and the entire opposition. This is much regrettable, and what it is, here, this departure from past parliamentary traditions has resulted in widening of gulf between the ruling party and the entire opposition. This is much regrettable. The third point, impact of polarized politics. Look at this. On the eve of what is being posited as possibly the most critical election in this century, politics is highly polarized and is further exacerbating divisive tendencies. Why? Because Hindu majoritarism, whether intended or not, thus looms large in the minds of sections of public, alongside a perception that mandir defines the nature of politics in election year. So this is polarizing the community, the population in the country. The fourth concern here which has been highlighted is federalism, on which the constitution makers placed great store, is becoming a victim of this situation. How? Opposition charge that ruling dispensation at the center is breaching the federal principle with impunity. The opposition charges sheet includes aspects such as attempts to enforce an uniform civil code. So these points has been mentioned, saying that the fabric of the federalism is being impacted. How? Because uniform civil code is being forced alongside manifest attempts to push through the concept of one nation, one election, possibly intended to undermine the role of regional parties. The oppositions, it is the standpoint or the view of the opposition saying that this is threatening the ethos of the federalism which country rests on. And then fifth concern which has been highlighted here is defections have been a major bane of Indian politics. So defection is a major critical part, and it has been present throughout the constitutional history. But engineered defections, defection has always been there as a bane in the Indian politics, in the Indian polity. But now the defections are being engineered. How? Case in example, Bihar, the example that we look at, and then particularly of the kind being reported in this election year. So example for engineered defections has been here given by the writer is of Bihar, invigilating the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar to change sides with implicit promises that he could continue as Chief Minister under new dispensation headed by the BJP. So this is example of engineered defection. Defection has been there, still it was controllable, but now the defections are being engineered to and we have also talked about horse trading in 1 or 2 sessions before. So you can connect with horse trading as well, which is being continuously used. So these are the points has been mentioned. And then sixth concern which has been mentioned by the writer is distinct from this but intrinsically linked to it are perceived violations of constitutionally mandated conduct by centrally appointed governors in the certain state. So here role of the governors is being highlighted, that centrally appointed governors are pushing through the interests of center on the states where the party in the state is not of same as of center. So here that is the point which has been made. Then in way forward, before the way forward, there is seventh concern which has been highlighted is what is apparent and most lacking today is the absence of rule-based order in regard to center-state relations and with regard to party-to-party relations. In the absence of this, there is every danger that the system could overturn altogether. So these are 6-7 concerns which has been mentioned by the writer, which needs to look at and which needs to dealt with to restore or to sustain or to contain the ethos of democracy which the country rests on. And then what could be the solution? The solution which the writer has mentioned, which you can use beautifully in your answer, is constitutionally mandated principles should be adhered to in such situations where there is a threat to democracy in such a larger country, in such a largest democracy that India is. So what are the solutions? You can read. There is again every danger that if these were to continue, what we understand by democracy under constitutional mandate would cease to exist. Tolerating differences is hence the first. So the first order of priority kya hona chahiye? That should be constitution, tolerating the difference. The differences should be tolerated. Second, everything has to be subordinated to the requirement of constitution. The constitution should be the priority. The constitution, everything should be subordinate to the constitution. The third, managing the subtle interplay between interests and values and reaffirming a firm belief in the constitution is a basic necessity, right? So these are the 2-3 points. There are no rivalries that cannot be managed within a constitutionally mandated system. So the system should be constitutionally mandated. The supreme document of the country, that is constitution, the principles adhered, the principles mentioned in the constitution should be adhered to sustain and to further enrich the democratic ethos which the country rests on. So these are the points which has been mentioned in this article, and this is, I believe, is very good article that you can use for various answer writing purposes. If there are any issue, any question depending on the declining parliamentary practices or democracy and democratic ethos being under threat in prevailing situation. So this kind of question you can deal with this kind of articles, and solution you can directly mention that constitutionally mandated principles should be adhered to. The fifth article, keep it wholesome. So here the article is about genetic awareness for cervical cancers. There has been 2 tests mentioned here which I wanted to highlight. In prelims, question can be asked that what are the 2 tests, these two tests in the news are related to what? So just read VIA and Willi test. This is these tests are used to diagnose the cervical cancer. What is that? VIA and Willi test. And then there will be cryotherapy. Cryotherapy is used to treat cervical cancer. These are 2-3 points which I wanted you to note down as a PT pointer. And then the next article, 6, judicial clarity on the free speech. So digital platform, social media, and also the OTTs and IT rules, where freedom of speech and expression vis-a-vis the all these platforms, how far the freedom of speech can be used to express views on digital media, digital platforms, OTTs, social media. All these things are such an intertwined topic, and I think there is a high probability of question being asked from these areas such as social media, freedom of speech and expression. And then there is a another issue of there was in news few months before about Kunal Kamra case, who wrote something against the decision of the judiciary acquitting Arnab Goswami. And then there has been news regarding OTT platforms and freedom of speech and expression. Are there too much violent elements shown in the OTT series, etc.? So this topic has been news in quite a news. Let's just read some of the points which has been mentioned in the article, and let's understand the context and everything else related with this news which we need to take up. In this news, there is article, we do not have much content to be picked up from. Just 2-3 articles you need to read, but I will add some content with respect to this article, and which you can use to write answer on this particular topic that I have gathered from various sources. Read this. The 31st January decision of Justice Gautam Patel of Bombay High Court in a bunch of petitions popularly known as Kunal Kamra's case stands out for its compelling articulation of constitutional fundamentals in relation to right to freedom of speech on social media. Right to freedom of speech on social media. the learned judge has reiterated the sacrosanctity of the inviolate constitutional guarantee of free speech not to be tinkered with or read down except for reasonable restrictions thereon as envisaged in Article 19(2), Article 19 subclause clause 2 subclause 6 of the Constitution. So you can also here relate the topic with censorship etc. also. So let's look some of the detailed content about this. First, let's look at a question which you can think of while you are reading the article, the content, and you can think such kind of question can be asked from this area and how you will be attempting. What is the constitutionality of the blocking orders for specific content on social media in the context of India? Signify the requirements of a robust regulatory framework for online information spaces. Why social media is double-edged sword? Social media are double-edged sword. Essay can come. In ethics also, you with this particular case can be asked in your case study as well. So then let's read about the article. So what was the context? Supreme Court had issued a notice to stand-up comedian Kunal Kamra regarding his tweets disrespecting the judiciary. He disrespected judiciary by saying that the court order of acquitting Arnav Goswami was not right. It was under influence of the political party in power in present scenario. And then about Kunal Kamra and Rachita Taneja were issued notice by Supreme Court, and they were asked to give reply of the notice in 6 weeks for their tweets and illustrations respectively. The contempt notice was issued by a bench of Justice Ashok Bhushan, R.S. Reddy and Amar Shah. The tweets that amounted to criminal contempt of the court. So on what were the tweets which he wrote? Honor has left the building. The Supreme Court of this country is the most supreme joke of this country. He posted the picture of Supreme Court in saffron color and with BJP flag on it. Kamra refused to apologize for his tweets. Kamra made these tweets after a Supreme Court granted bail to Arnav Goswami. The consent for the criminal contempt proceeding was given after several letters sent to Attorney General Vangopal requesting him to start criminal contempt proceeding against Kunal Kamra. So this is the context of this article. Let's look at the second kind of question which can come. Social media is a double-edged sword in this realm of free speech. Substantiate. Explain in detail the idea of co-regulation of social media. So let's say this kind of question comes in exam, which is a very probable, which is high probability. So why social media is said to be double-edged sword? First thing, moderation of content by platforms. Social media platforms regularly manage user content on their website. They remove, prioritize or suspend user accounts that violate the terms and the conditions of their platform. Excessive power in the government's hands. That is why this social media is a double-edged sword. Platforms of democratic freedom. As such, large platforms have a substantial bearing on core democratic freedoms. Hate speeches, and then further there is a hate speech on internet as well. A lot of people being anonymous, they do write something or anything termed as a hate speech against anybody. So further, with the increasing reach of the internet, its potential harms have also increased. There is more illegal and harmful content online today. That is why social media is a double-edged sword. Disinformation campaigns on social media during COVID-19 and hate speeches against the Rohingya and Myanmar are recent examples. So further, what could be the balanced approach between free speech and regulation? So because social media is a double-edged sword, there has to be some regulations. So how the regulation and free speech should be balanced, you should know that. So government, even if we talk from the citizens perspective, there is some fundamental duties which citizens should adhere to, and what are some of the duties which citizens should adhere to is that they should respect the government orders. And the second example of DSA, if you take the recent European Union Digital Service Act, is a good reference point. The DSA regulates intermediary liability in the UAE. It requires government takedown orders to be proportionate and reasoned. Platforms can challenge the government order. So the platforms where the censorship or any kind of restriction has been made, they can always challenge the order. And then third, an idea of co-regulation. Platforms must have the responsibility to regulate content under broad government guidelines. The platforms which are releasing any content, they should have some regulation in coherence with the government guidelines. That's how freedom of speech and regulation can be balanced together. So this was about I think yes, this is it about today's articles from The Hindu, and these are the 5-6 articles which you need to note down and focus. There are 2-3 articles which you need to read from prelims point of view, and there are 2 very important articles you need to read about mains point of view, which was one from the editorial, and then about democracy and democratic ethos, and second is about freedom of speech, social media, censorship, etc. So this is it about today's news discussion. Keep reading newspaper. Tathastu.